For those who don't know, the Canton Fair is one of China's largest trade fairs and a barometer of the country's export strength. Held biannually in Guangzhou, the month-long event attracts hundreds of thousands of buyers from across the globe to purchase made-in-China products. Stations use the most recent autumn session saw participation fall sharply amid China's lackluster trade environment. The number of overseas buyers attending declined by nearly 50% compared to last year, reflecting dampened global demand for Chinese exports across consumer electronics, machinery equipment, and other key categories. China's economy is in an extremely dire situation. China reported declines in both exports and imports in October, the latest sign that the world's second-largest economy continues to struggle with weak external demand. Exports fell 6.4% in October from a year earlier, steeper than the expected drop of 3.3%. The data marks the seventh straight monthly decline in exports on a year-on-year basis as China faces cooling demand globally. Imports have also contracted on an annual basis every month since September 2021. Not only that, there has been a concerning exodus of foreign companies shutting down factories and withdrawing investments from China. This monumental shift threatens to upend China's position as the dominant global manufacturing hub. The withdrawal has been sharp and sudden. Foreign direct investment into China plummeted in 2022, dropping by 10.6% year-on-year according to Chinese government data. In particular, FDI nosedived in the third quarter by 15.6% after lockdowns crippled supply chains. Multinational companies from across the technology, retail, and manufacturing sectors have hastened exit plans from China. Prominent examples include Apple shifting production to India and Vietnam, Amazon closing warehouses, and large-scale automakers like Toyota unwinding joint ventures. The recent reports about Apple's decision to withdraw from the Chinese market due to forced factory closures that emptied its $300 billion production capacity overnight have attracted wide attention and discussion. Some believe this could greatly impact China's tech industry and economic development, even leading to disastrous consequences. Firstly, Apple is an integral part of China's electronics industry, with its factories and supply chains occupying an important position in China. If Apple really withdraws from the Chinese market, it would deliver a huge blow to China's electronics industry and supply chains, leading to massive unemployment and economic losses that negatively impact China's economic development. Secondly, Apple wields huge influence in the Chinese market, with its product sales and market share accounting for a large proportion. If Apple withdraws from the Chinese market, it could affect the development prospects of other Chinese tech companies and even lead to the decline of the entire Chinese tech industry. The manufacturing exodus is gutting China's sprawling industrial bases. In Shanghai, factory closures have led to masses of migrant workers departing for their hometowns. Empty factories across China as export orders vanish. As overseas demand evaporates, China's vast manufacturing sector faces an unprecedented crisis. The key exporter industries that propelled China's economic miracle are unraveling at the seams. Export orders from multinational companies have gone into free fall. Chinese suppliers reliant on America and Europe have seen sales plummet by up to 40%. Once bustling factory floors now sit vacant, their former migrant workers returning home en masse.
请行矿区正风矿。
This collapse in demand has devastated China's industrial workforce. Manufacturing centers that drew millions from rural areas now face rampant layoffs and closures. Dongguan, an industrial hub known as the factory of the world, has seen 1 in 5 of its thousands of factories close this year. In Kunshan, the heart of electronics manufacturing, over 100 Taiwan-invested firms have shuttered. The list goes on. labor-intensive industries, like textiles and furniture, are especially ravaged. But even higher-end manufacturers like medical device makers face evaporating orders as entire supply chains retreat from China. Full economies reliant on factories are under severe strain. In Wenzhou, a city built on shoemaking, over 700 footwear plants closed in 2022. Unemployment is mounting in cities across China's vast interior. This collapse of China's export industry is a disaster for the country. Entire cities built around manufacturing now face economic ruin. Millions of laid-off workers have nowhere to turn as unemployment ravages China's interior. Overflowing ports. Exports languish as demand evaporates. As overseas orders dry up, China's bustling ports are bearing the brunt of the fallout. Containers are piling up in vast numbers as ships arrive full of goods, but depart empty. Images of overflowing freight yards have become commonplace. At the port of Ningbo, the world's third busiest, stacked containers soar 10 levels high. Shanghai's port, the largest globally, has nearly 250,000 TIU congesting its terminals. This glut of exports without buyers reveals the sucking vacuum of external demand. In prior years, loaded containers leaving Chinese ports typified its manufacturing machine humming on all cylinders. Now, full containers only accumulate.
这一点从码头桥吊的运行状况上也得到了印证。
大家可以看到，沿着码头呢有49台桥吊，除了在远处呢有4台桥吊的悬臂正立着的，其他的45台桥吊呢都在正常作业。
记者在港口转了一圈，发现确实有不少集装箱空箱堆积。码头工作人员告诉记者，4层以上的集装箱叠在一起的，基本就都是空箱。从港口负责人那里，记者了解到，目前港口里存放的空箱数大约是14万标准箱。
按照我们的正常生产水平来说，是我们的一个。
Goods are bottlenecking across China's coastal export hubs. In Shenzhen, thousands of containers filled with electronics, textiles, and plastics await collection. But with export orders plunging, they may simply be abandoned. As barometers of China's economic health, port backlogs signal a gathering crisis. Exporters are hemorrhaging orders as clients in America, Europe, and beyond search for alternatives. This poses an enormous threat to China's growth model, which relies on endless overseas consumption. As its pool of buyers shrinks, so too does the need for its factories. Port stockpiles may be the first symptom of a gargantuan shift. Containers will not sit idle forever. If exports stagnate, the goods may have to be dumped, recycled, or sold at drastic markdowns domestically. But none can replace the trading engine that powered China's rise. For decades, stuffed containers leaving China represented prosperity and progress. Now these hulking metal boxes, stagnating, silent, and full, symbolize an economy grinding to a halt. China's workers and small business owners face ruin. Beyond the statistics, China's economic shifts are imposing real hardship on workers and entrepreneurs across the country. As factories shutter and contracts vanish, millions face precarity or poverty. Migrant laborers who flocked from rural villages to industrial boomtowns now face exclusion and unemployment. Their jobs evaporating, prospects dim. Many can only retreat back to the countryside. Manufacturing zones once lifted these workers out of subsistence, living into China's middle class. But as exports and orders decrease, their livelihoods hang by a thread.
裁了，被裁了，兄弟们，被公司裁员了。北京刚进入寒冬，我的职业也迎来了寒。和公司 抗争了3个月，最终还是签了离职协议。今年的市场环境非常，很多大厂裁员的小伙伴们已经在家待了半年。人到中年，上有老，下有小，还背负着，现在都不知道怎么跟家里去说。40岁，突然间感觉不知道干什么。被裁员的小伙伴们，你们现在过得还好吗？
Entrepreneurs too faced a crisis as their export-dependent factories, workshops, and trading companies collapsed without overseas customers. Lacking capital buffers, small business owners are first to suffer when payments cease. Dongguan will close 3,000 companies in 2023, and there will be more than 1,700 in the manufacturing industry alone. As a 30-year-old alloy saw blade company, it will be overwhelmed by this heavy asset investment in the manufacturing industry. Their stories embody the unsung dynamism and grit of China's private sector. Yet as external demand disappears, even the most determined find their life's work unraveling. Their capital and know-how could reinvigorate Asian economies, beckoning investment. The desperation is palpable in industrial districts, where protests by unpaid workers and owners erupt. 80% of China's exports are from SME, absorbing the worst shocks. The glowing supply chain that connected China to the world economy now contracts, shedding jobs, wealth, and prospects in the process. The crisis highlights the urgent need for China to expand domestic consumption as global engine sputters. The CCP did this to China. China's authoritarian government has engineered an increasingly perilous and hostile business atmosphere for multinational corporations. Sudden regulatory changes, opaque implementation, and targeting of foreign firms point to intensifying economic nationalism. Abusive cybersecurity reviews, forced technology transfers, as overseas companies are coerced into handing over sensitive IP and source code. Vague anti-monopoly rules and protectionist industrial policies rig markets for the benefit of Chinese state-backed behemoths while crippling foreign competitors. Harassment of foreign travelers has also escalated dramatically. Orwellian border checks, surveillance restrictions on movement, and internet censorship impose a technological police state on visitors. Draconian data laws compound the menace, empowering thought police with unchecked access to corporate secrets. New regulations weaponize obscure bureaucratic requirements to drive out disfavored foreign entities, especially in education and civil society. Those who remain must tread with extreme caution, as ill-defined ideological red lines portend arbitrary punishment. Beneath veneers of international cooperation, Beijing's ruthless apparatchiks plot to isolate China from the global economy. They envision a techno-dystopia of totalitarian control and forced self-reliance. For multinationals, this neo-Maoist retrogression foreshadows a new era fraught with danger and despair.